I recently took 3 of my nieces and nephews to see the musical Lion King at the Orpheum. I love the quality time I get with them on these adventures, seeing how much they grow, and I love their excitement, something they get to look forward to. And it really was quite a production when you consider that all the characters in the original story are animals. So there's this effect in watching it where you're like kind of blown away. And for me, Lion King came out, the original Disney movie, in 1994. So I was a senior in high school. So I don't think I actually ever watched the movie all the way through. But I've heard it referenced so many times that I almost assumed that I had, which, by the way, I think is how a lot of people can relate to the gospel, the good news. That's another homily. But it's like, I know it, sort of. And I want to share with you what I took to be the graced moment and the moral of the Lion King, just as a way in to the manifold riches of the scriptures we just heard. I won't presume you have watched it, but it tells the story of Mufasa, who is the Lion King, and his son Simba is set at some point to take over as the Lion King. But Simba is disobedient at times, and his disobedience actually gets his father killed, because his father needs to protect him, and there's other things that happen, but he feels so much shame that he just departs from the kingdom far away. And he tries to live this philosophy of no worries, which, by the way, I think is a lot of how we can live. Just, I don't know, nothing really is at stake, nothing really matters. But through these years, as he's growing older, he's getting restless because he realizes that there's like a part of his being that's untapped, responsibility, a part of his dignity. And when an old friend eventually finds him, Nala, and it's a little love story there, but she's trying to convince him to come back. And he still doesn't want to. He's just overcome by the fact that his actions got his dad killed. And there's this great tune, He Lives in You. Those of you who are familiar with this, you know it, but for me it was all kind of new, Besides being one of the most impressive, sounding, the lyrics are like, no, he lives in you. He watches over. And it's almost like through this song, this truth, there's this memory that touches his heart. And he's finally able to go back to do what he needs to do and to be king. The moral I took for the story is that you either learn from your past or you run from it. Now, there's many ways to run from our past. The sting of things on our conscience that we just, they cause us to cringe when we remember them. So you either run from your past or you learn from it. I'm so struck that when Jesus appears, the risen Lord, so often he just leads with peace, but then he wants them to remember. Like there's something he wants them to remember that's deeper than their failure. They all failed, miserably, embarrassingly. And so when he meets them, he opens their minds to understand. It's okay, there's more to it. And what's more, I need you to be my witnesses. I'm going to give you my spirit. The king is going to live in you. Do you ever think how much the world needs your witness? And if the world seems too big, how about your family? How about where you work? How about your neighbors? They need your witness. Someone who's not just living a no-worries philosophy of life, but who understands what's at stake and who's willing to step up, who's willing to live the dignity of being Christian. Like, I was baptized, I was anointed. I'm a priest, you're a priest. I'm a prophet, you're a prophet. I'm a king. The king lives in us. Now, the reality is, for most of us, we do get stuck. We get stuck somehow in the memory of our sin. We do have to deal with our sin. I'm so struck that when children ask me, kindergarten, first grade, why did Jesus die? I know the answer intellectually, you know it intellectually, but every time I try to explain it to those children, it just falls flat. They're satisfied because I said something, but I can tell that they're like, what? And that's, of course, they haven't come to terms with sin. They shouldn't. They're still innocent in a certain way. Sometimes when I hear Peter's first homilies from the Acts of the Apostles, I wonder if I'm even preaching, because there's power. And I'm so struck by what he says. He looks at those first people listening to his sermon, and he says, you put the author of life to death. Oh. You mean I did that? I mean, this is where Simba's living, right? He's carrying this around like a weight, but he's trying to, no worries, I'm just going to, no, you did it. But then, in the very same sentence, he says, repent and be converted and receive forgiveness. Notice he doesn't say make a project of your sin. Notice he doesn't say fix yourself. Repent, open yourself to God's Spirit, be converted, and go forward. Move. Take steps into greater and greater freedom. I mean, I can look all of you in the eyes, and I can look myself in the mirror and say, we don't even know what's possible for us with God's grace. We really don't. As much as the world needs our witness, we don't even know unless we open ourselves. And then finally, I love this second reading, St. John. He says, look, if you're lacking confidence, like your sin is too much, or your weakness is too much, your failure, Jesus is expiation. You know what that word means? It goes to the roots. It's divine blood. That's what it means. And so he says, now this Jesus lives forever as your advocate. I wonder if this is how you and I experience Jesus, our advocate. Recently I got to help a friend in the last month who's going through something difficult and unjust, and it's scary. And I recommended a great attorney. I trust him. And when I reconnected with this friend, he's like, it made all the difference in the world. Just to have this person in the room with me. He knows things I don't know. And he's with me. He's with me. An advocate's with you. This attorney goes to every meeting, all the different conflicts. So I really want to encourage us today, what a beautiful dignity that we have in Jesus. Yeah, we can live in the world far from the kingdom. We're always going to be restless. Our full potential is never going to be tapped until we step into our identity. The reality is the King lives in us. It's remarkable. And no matter what your past has been, I really mean that, there's no exceptions. Whatever your past has been, you don't need to get stuck there. You don't need to run from it. You don't need to distract yourself from it. You don't need to sink in it. Repent. Let that divine blood of the expiation of Jesus, and then allow him to be right with you in all of life. Temptations, fears, as the one who is your advocate.